And last time I checked, you're not a priest.
Nope. Although it is worth noting as well, and I think this is the logical segue into it, there are priests from the Middle Ages that summon demons.
And later.
And later.
I mean, you have Pope Honorius III.
Yes.
Who summoned demons to fight them.
Yes,
There's a black magic practicing pope. Gets a little weird.
Yeah, basically, according to the story, he found the temptations of the world insufficient, so he decided to summon up demons to give him some more evil to resist. Which is a really fascinating concept to me. It's like, the normal stuff's just too easy. Let's try the hard stuff. Just so I can say no to it.
Yeah, you're not the best thought out plan.
I definitely don't recommend following it. I haven't read a lot about it, but from what I know, there is actually some debate about whether Honorius' grimoire was actually written by Honorius. But there are other examples. There's also, oh dang it, I'm forgetting his name. Saint Theophilus of Adana, also known as Saint Theophilus the Penitent. Most people listening to this have probably heard of the story of Faust, the famous guy who sold the devil in the Middle Ages. Well, Renaissance more than the Middle Ages.
Or later, even, depending on which version.
Yeah.
I mean, it was written in the 19th century.
No, there's a much older... Christopher Marlowe, who is a contemporary of Shakespeare, also wrote a version of the Faust legend.
Okay. Of the legend, okay. The Faust, as a literary work, is usually attributed to Goethe.
Yeah, the most famous version is, but there's also the tragical comedy of Dr. Faustus, which was written by Christopher Marlowe.
Okay, yeah.
Read it in college, actually. Good play. Theophilus is a precursor to Faust. He was supposed to be a very pious man who sold his soul to Satan. Specifically, he was in line to become bishop. He turned it down because he was a humble man. And then his arch rival got the job instead. And in envy, he goes to the devil, sells his soul to get the guy thrown out and take the position. He becomes bishop, eventually becomes very remorseful of what he's done. He spends something like 30-40 days praying to the Virgin Mary, at the end of which the contract appears in front of him and he gets out of it.
That is a story that has a lot of holes, theosophically speaking. Yeah,
yes.
Basically, that should not be a manual for how to. Is what I'm getting at with that one.
Yeah. But just to give everybody, being a Catholic saint, he does have his feast day is February 4th. And to give you an idea in time period, this is from the 6th century. Also, so it's a pretty old version of the story of the Sell Your Soul story.
It's also cited as one of the reasons why God was considered a willful God and not a logical God, which we talked about previously in the skepticism episode.
Yes, the lost episode.
Oh, that is lost, isn't it?
Yeah, because all the times
the ether.
We will. Okay, we keep referring to this episode, and we are going to have to refilm it at some point. Because people are probably, as we're popular, I'm assuming people are going to go, so where's this episode you keep talking about that doesn't exist?
But
I think I'm going to just call it the cursed episode, given we filmed it 3 separate times and none of them stuck. I did it by myself. You and I did it over Skype, and we did it in person.
Yeah. So, let's talk about how why not to do black magic.
Let's hit the other major form we talked about, necromancy.
Yes. So, as opposed to the idea of raising up the dead in armies like you see in fantasy, it's actually a lot less exciting than that. Necromancy, mancy just means divination by. Necro, you should know that one. That's dead. That's necromancy by the dead. You summon spirits to talk to find out what they know.
Yep. This is one of the ones that's explicitly prohibited by the Bible. Several times.
And one of the Jewish kings even tried it.
Yes.
Did not work for him.
Which is in 1 Samuel, it's the story of King Saul and the Witch of Endor.
Yep. And it is the source of a lot of theological debate.
Yes, was it a spirit of the dead? Was it a demon? I'm firmly of the opinion that it's because of what the spirit says, I believe it was in fact the spirit of the dead. But there are a lot of theologians who would disagree with me.
Yep.
I know, I've had this argument with them.
And the key argument is that basically it was a demon trying to put him off his game before the fight. Which, it's not a bad line of logic either. Both of them have their merits, both of them have their flaws. But, so...
Yeah. From a very literal interpretation of what it said, though, it says it's the spirit of Samuel.
Necromancy, though, is not considered black magic across the board. That's one thing that should be noted. The Greeks are one example where there were people whose sole job it was to raise the dead, to basically help provide closure for people. So usually when I'm thinking of black magic, necromancy is not the first thing that comes to mind, because there are non-black variants of it from a pagan perspective.
This is true, but traditional necromancy, I'm not positive this applies to Greek necromancy, although I believe it does. Does fall into one of other categories of what is black magic, because usually to perform traditional necromancy, you need a dead body. Or at least parts of one.
There is also, you could just have belongings of the person. Also, a family member who has...
Well, I would argue that there you're starting to slide into the more morally gray area, the more gray area of mediumship.
Yeah, no, but that is still a form of necromancy. You are using the dead for divination, therefore it is necromancy by definition, so...
True.
We're basically trying to draw a line
here
between you have dug up a body from the ground to try and talk to it and find out where his treasure is buried, and a person trying to talk to their dead relatives to get closure.
This is true, and I'm certainly not outright denouncing the closure part, because it can be a helpful, healthy thing when it's done properly, and it's actually done as opposed to faking it like a lot of modern mediums. But there is definitely a school of thought in necromancy that requires, if not either the entire dead body or parts. One of the worst cases I ever had involves somebody who'd like to talk to the spirits in her house through the unearthed skull of a human baby.
Although grabbing the skull of a baby is much more demonic summoning than Spirit of the Dead. Because spirits of the dead aren't necessarily evil. So generally,
this is true.
Grabbing something as evil as an infant's skull would kind of already push away spirits who aren't already screwed up.
Which is also where we're getting to, and you know as well as I do, in the Middle Ages in particular, there's a lot of blurring lines into what sort of spirits necromancers are summoning. I would personally say that the majority of necromancers that aren't doing it in the mediumistic sense of trying to reach closure, the ones that are trying to do it for prophecy, the ones that are trying to do it for, like the guy who's digging up the corpse to talk to the dead body to find out where the treasure is buried. You're not getting the spirit of the dead. You're getting a demon that's saying it's the spirit of the dead.
Which is funny because the digging up the body for the sake of finding treasure is recognized as summoning a demon. That is actually the protocol for summoning a demon to find treasure.
Yeah, but there are people that certainly there are a lot of necromancers that do it that summon what they claim are spirits for the dead, claiming they're spirits of the dead that are dealing with something else.
It is, theologically speaking, demons disguise themselves as people.
Yeah.
In that ritual where they use that body, the demon basically is forced to appear as that person did in life. So that's one of, we know it's a demon, but look, it doesn't look like one.
What we're running into here is a problem with our definitions of which is which, that the lines of white magic and black magic aren't really that clear.
Yeah, necromancy is the one where that is.
It's the clearest. There are other examples, but it's the clearest example of, well, really, at least among the magicians that I know, and I've known a few over the years, aside from Arthur, who of course we've had on, the line between white magic and black magic usually comes down to more the intent than the method. I don't necessarily agree with that, but
also, not just intent, but for necromancy, a big difference is: are you compelling the dead to show themselves, or are you requesting the dead to show themselves? That's another big difference.
Yeah, which goes back to, again, the free will issue. If you're asking somebody to show up, okay. If you're summoning it up and saying you must appear, they're dead. That doesn't mean that you now have the right to violate their free will.
Yeah, the Greek one where they would command the dead to rise was because they would also ask Hades for permission. So there's still that element of appeal to a greater power.
Yeah.
That is divine power, not evil.
And the fact that Hades is the way he gets misrepresented in modern popular culture, which is a whole other episode.
He's a nice guy.
Like, if you're gonna make a deal with any of the Greek gods, he's one of the better choices. Because on the whole, he honors what he says he's gonna do.
Yeah. Vulcan's not a bad choice either.
Who is?
Sorry, what is the non-Roman name of Vulcan?
Vulcan. I didn't. That would be Hephaestus.
Hephaestus. I was like, yeah.
No, I didn't quite catch the name the first time you said it.
He's not a bad one to go by.
No.
He just likes making stuff. And blowing up Pompeii. So, let's see. Oh, consequences is what we should get into now.
Yes.
That one is much more up your alley.
Yeah.
To answer.
The reality is, when people get cursed, often people like me wind up showing up to clean up the mess. When people practice black magic, it's not uncommon for me to have to clean up the mess as well, because even if you're summoning demons, you're trying to catch a tiger by the tail. If you make a mistake, it's going to try and claw your face off. That's their nature. Not
to mention, think of it this way. let's assume an incorrect assumption, but a really gentle one. Demons are not out to immediately destroy you. You just drag them up, completely against their will. You then lock them up in a circle, or you lock them up where they can't get to you, because you're in the circle, depending on who you're asking. Explain to me why they'd be happy, and then you're telling them they have to do things for you. I'm sorry, if someone drags me out of my bed, against my will, and then tells me I have to do something, and effectively puts me in chains, but they forget to lock it, they're not having a good time.
No.
That's generally the idea of, oops, I messed up. Uh-oh.
And also the reality is you can't command demons without paying some kind of price. They don't work for free.
Depending on who you're asking, theosophically speaking.
Philosophically speaking, there's a spirit. Even if you could get it to work for free, there's going to be a spiritual price down the line. Again, what profited a man to gain the world to lose his soul?
There's a catch-22 that the medieval necromancers had, which was, oh, but none of the magic's for me. I'm not trying to gain the world at all. I'm trying to help the world by forcing demons. I'm sacrificing my own soul for the good of everyone, which in turn blesses my soul. So I'm good.
Yeah, which is so not a biblically sound concept.
This is why it was known as heresy.
Yeah. Especially keep in mind the very true old saying that the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah, their warning was, okay, so you're trying to act for the good of it. The reason why they tried to dissuade more people from joining was supposed to be a very small, close thing.
Yeah.
Was, okay, yeah, we are supposed to do things for the good of everyone. Okay, so you're telling me you actually understand what everyone needs. And then you're saying that with demons around you all the time, you're not going to give into temptation to do a single thing for you. Which is why most medieval mages also believed that most medieval mages were damned.
They just thought they were the exception.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, the rest, they're damned. I'm good.
That was generally the idea. So...
And again, and it's an idea. I'm actually working on my first creepypasta at the moment, which deals with this a little more. But it's one of the problems I have with the classic sell your soul to the devil story, in that at the end of the story, after the person's been this total asshole and killed people and been greedy and used all of this power the demon gave them to get all of these worldly things that they want, they find some sort of legal loophole to get their soul back. And theologically speaking, you can sell I don't recommend it for obvious reasons, but yes, you can sell your soul to the devil. He'll happily take the contract, but you're not going to find a loophole if you act like a total asshole. And at the end of the time, when you're about to die, you find a legal loophole. You're still going to hell because you're a total asshole. You don't get out of it just because you kept basically by still being an asshole and finding a loophole.
Not to mention, you're telling me that the lawyer of God existed since effectively the beginning of time. You outlawed. Like, you just were a better lawyer than he was. Sure. We'll go with that. I mean, the guy was able to fight God. Not win, but he was able to fight God. And you're telling me this... Yeah, no, I got this. I'll find my way out. Okay?
Yeah, although I would say it was... him fighting God, as I like to put it, was probably history's first curb stomp battle.
Not according to the... Revelations was described as quite an epic battle. And you have frozen.
But, yeah, you're not going to out-lawyer the original lawyer.
No.
And even if you can, you're damned by your work. You're going to be damned by your actions. You don't... So, salvation doesn't come... And I think I can safely say this is true of all major religions. Salvation doesn't come by cheating the rules. You can't
Now I want to see if I can find an exception.
pull your way into heaven.
I want to see if I can find an exception to that. Ancient Irish. Ancient Irish were totally a fan of that one. Being clever was the highest virtue. Where they just be like, yeah, no, okay, you can go, but we're gonna make sure that no one else does after that.
I will say, because this has actually come up for me, that in reality, people who do make the deal, you're not damned forever. There is still a hope of redemption. It's just being a sneak is not going to get you out of it. You actually need repentance, and if I go too far down this road, we're going to wind up being a sermon, and I don't really want to give a sermon. The point is that no, if you making the deal, there's still hope, which is, I think, it's an interesting theological question of why does the devil make the deal when the Bible doesn't explicitly mention that kind of deal anywhere, and he doesn't actually need the deal necessarily to get your soul. He just needs to do wicked things. I think part of the reason he does it is just because people think, I made the deal, I'm damned. And they're not less likely to look for help. Or on the other hand, people make the deal, get clever, and think, he tore up the contract, I'm scot-free. I can go back to doing what I was doing.
There could also just be the idea of an explicit pact with the devil is a massive sin.
Yes, that as well.
So just the act of it is a massive sin. Therefore, why not get people to do it?
Yeah. Although, again, neither of us is theologians.
This is just me thinking logically.
Yeah. And I'm sure, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a theologian out there listening to this, maybe when we get it up, maybe somewhere down the road going, no, no, no. And,
you're wrong!
KevinM.ParanormalEncyclopedia@gmail.com. If there's a theologian listening to this who has a different opinion, let us know.
Or the same one. That's...
Yeah. That's also good.
I don't mind being told I'm right. Or wrong.
Wouldn't mind, for that matter, getting... I mean, we've still got the interview with the Exorcist to do. I wouldn't mind getting a theologian or two on as well. It'd be interesting to get the perspective.
Yeah. So I think that pretty much wraps up Black Magic for now.
Do we want to touch briefly on a couple of the famous black magicians?
No, we're already at 48 minutes.
True. Well, okay, things to come back to, because Aleister Crowley alone deserves some time.
And D. Can never forget D. I love D.
Oh, D, Aleister Crowley. Could probably talk a little bit more about Faust. And though it's not technically black magic, for the good fun of it, we're going to have to talk about Robert Johnson coming down the road.
Alright.
And before we wrap up, everybody, as a teaser for when we do get to him, if you don't know who I mean by Robert Johnson, look up Crossroad Blues and listen to it. You're welcome.
Or, just go back to that episode of Supernatural.
True, they use some of his music in there, for that matter.
And his entire legend.
Yep, I know, but his music's also absolutely spectacular, and I recommend
it's good.
He's considered possibly the single greatest guitarist of all time. But again, this is something for another day. So for tonight, I'm your host, Kevin Mears, and this is your other host,
Drew Rosanti. So,
have a good night, folks.